Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly Live for October 13th, 2024. I'm Peggy Kay, and today there are multiple small updates for YouTube. There's an update for Twitch, Threads, for photographers, Google Docs, a whole bunch of things. And I'm trying something new today. Viewer Braylon had a question about understanding YouTube analytics and the revenue sharing, the revenue information. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through some of those stats. Like I said, it's an experiment. We'll see how that goes, and maybe there'll be more segments like that in the future. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone in the live chat. It's good to see you. I hope that you are having an excellent weekend, and if you are in Florida or the East Coast, you haven't been too badly affected by the latest hurricanes. It's just really something to see all the destruction they can cause in such a short time. So, welcome everybody. I am going to get started now with a few small updates from YouTube. And as you guys know, there was a bunch of updates they've had over the past few weeks. But this is something that's entirely new. YouTube announced that they have added the ability to search from comments on mobile. So certain frequently searched words or phrases are going to be blue and bold with a sort of magnifying glass next to them. And if you click that, it opens the search results. If you are watching a regular long form video, you'll still see that video playing in the mini player and you can go back to it. If you're watching a short and you do this search, it only searches shorts. And then after you're done looking at the search results, you can go back to the shorts feed. This seems interesting, good for viewers who want to find more similar content. I'm not sure it's that great for creators because it takes people away from the channel, at least for the video on demand. So if you are on mobile, iOS or Android, keep an eye out for these bold topics that you can do a search for from the comments. The next update I wanted to mention just briefly, again, is an update on one of the features that YouTube previously announced. Templates for shorts are rolling out. When you see a short that inspires you, you can go and click the remix button, and then you can choose the option to use template. And what that lets you do is reuse the music clip and the segments, and you basically then can replace the various segments in this video with your own video. So this is great if you want to be inspired by a popular short or one you just like the look of. You can easily use it as a template. Again, this is only on mobile because it uses the shorts editor in the mobile app. And the other update for shorts I wanted to mention is that YouTube is testing a save button in the shorts feed. So you will be watching the shorts, you see something really interesting or neat, you can click the save button, and that lets you add it to a playlist. The important thing to know about this is that if you're in this test, you'll see the save button, but the dislike button is now inside the three-dot menu for the short. So the dislike button isn't as visible. I saw some people kind of complaining, oh, you know, the dislike button's been removed. It's not removed, it's in the menu. And again, this is a test that YouTube is running. If you like it, if you don't like it, be sure to send feedback, and maybe the dislike button will be more visible in the final form this takes. I don't know. So if you're in this test, check it out. I think this sounds like it'd be useful because I watch a lot of shorts that have like cooking tips or gardening tips, and I do like to save those for later reference sometimes. This just makes it really easy. And then the last YouTube tip I wanted to talk about is that YouTube has published a brand new fact about how YouTube earnings payments work, what the timeline is, all the steps you need to take. If you're in the YouTube Partner Program or you're interested in it and you're not sure how payments work, this is worth checking out. As always, all of the tips and updates and news and links are in this week's blog post and newsletter. You can get links to both in the video description. If you want all of the news and tips in your email inbox every Saturday, you should subscribe to my email newsletter. It's totally free. So this brings me to a new segment. And Braylon, who I see is in the live chat, reached out to me with a question about how to understand some YouTube analytics around revenue. And I am going to actually just give a brief overview of how you look at that data and how you can understand it better. And Braylon generously offered to share screenshots of actual data that we can look at. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that there is an article in the YouTube Help Center where you can get all the details about how to understand all of the data in your YouTube analytics. There's definitions and examples, and it's really worth reviewing. What we're going to be talking about today is RPM. Now, what is RPM? It stands for revenue per mil, mil being a French word for 1,000. And so this is your revenue per 1,000 video views. It is a calculated number. So what it's taking is all of your revenue from ads, YouTube Premium, channel memberships, super chat, super stickers, all of that revenue. And then it takes out the share that YouTube takes. So then you say, okay, this is the total revenue I earned. And then it divides that by the total number of views. So you're getting a number of revenue per 1,000 views. And it doesn't just divide by monetized views, it divides by your total views. So RPM is telling you for every 1,000 views, this is how much you're earning. This is in contrast to CPM, which is the cost per mil, cost per 1,000 views. That is what the advertisers are paying. So those are two totally different numbers, and we're looking at RPM. So let's look at Braylon's data. And again, thank you so much for sharing. It makes it nice to have it shown. Now, this is RPM data for one particular video. So this video is monetized, and you can see that over time, the RPM goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and then there's a big spike of RPM. And that spike is $526, which is like, wow, that's really big. But here's the tricky bit. I'm going to go to the next view, which is showing the RPM and the views. This is actually an estimated monetized playbacks. So what we see is spikiness, and this particular video, on the day when it had the RPM of $526, it got 16 estimated monetized playbacks. And if you do the math, see, RPM is revenue per 1,000 views. So if you do the math, and assuming that all the views were monetized, you get about $9 total revenue on that day and 16 views. So basically, the way the calculation works is that there were 16 views and this much revenue after YouTube's cut. Let's extrapolate that. If you got 1,000 views at the same rate of revenue, you would have gotten in $526. Now, the problem with that is that the RPM varies a lot, and the amount you're paid for ads, for example, fluctuates a lot depending on the advertiser and the demographics of who is viewing the ad and the content that you're showing. There's different ads for different types of content. There's a whole bunch of factors, and sometimes you hit the jackpot and you get a really good paying ad. So you could just get a couple clicks and that could add up to $9. The problem with that is you can't really extrapolate that to 1,000 views easily if you're starting from 16 views, because it fluctuates so much. So is there a way you can always get those better paying views? I think that you focus on certain types of content are going to pay better for sure. But look at the average RPM over all of the views, and that's going to give you a better sense of how well that video is doing money-wise, because those spikes come and go and you can't count on them. So look at the average RPM over time. For this particular video, it looks like maybe you start getting better paying ads more recently. That's, look at the trends and see if that's happening. But I would look at the average overall, just because numerically you can't really extrapolate up like that for a reasonable amount. And then I would focus on getting more views, because getting more views with a lower RPM can actually earn you more money than having fewer views with a high RPM, because it's a numbers game. So focus on maybe improving the thumbnail, the description, the title, and see if you can get more views, and then your total revenue will increase even if the RPM stays the same. So Braylon, I hope that helped, and I hope you guys found that interesting. If any of the rest of you have questions, maybe I'll do this as a regular segment. Send me a message. You can do that if you subscribe to my email newsletter. You can just reply to the newsletter email. All right, so now I have more updates for other products. There's updates for Twitch coming up next. And let me just get that slide up. And we're just shifting gears a bit, because Twitch, like most platforms, has community guidelines. And they're written in a very general way. That's the way of community guidelines. And sometimes it can be a little unclear on how those exactly apply to what people are doing. So what Twitch has done is add enforcement notes to the community guidelines, which gives explanations on how each policy is being enforced with regards to current trends. So it can actually look at what people are streaming about and what people are doing on the platform and say, hey, this particular thing people are doing, it does comply, doesn't comply with this policy. So just as an example, If you go into their community guidelines and look at the spam guidelines, it says that, you can't spam, but if you open the enforcement notes, you can see that it says explicitly you're not allowed to redirect people to a live stream on a different platform, but links to social media profiles that are not related to a live stream are fine. So that gives very specific, concrete examples on how this policy is enforced, which I think this is a great update. More platforms should do this so people know exactly what the policies mean. So I'm going to shift gears a bit. If you're on Threads, I'm there a lot. Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge the comments here. First of all, thank you to Braylon so much. I think it's interesting to talk about some of these topics, and I'm happy to answer questions. And Andrew says, that is something Google should imitate. Google does imitate that. If you go into the YouTube community guidelines or the YouTube advertiser-friendly policies, they actually do have specific examples of what is allowed and what isn't allowed. You just have to, actually go read all that. But YouTube has been doing that, and I think it's extremely helpful. So I'm talking about Threads has been having a weird moment. If you're there, there is this term trending, Crackergate, because basically it seemed like their moderation went kind of haywire, and innocuous posts, like about crackers, the food, were being removed and not restored on appeal. So cracker can be a derogatory term. That's presumably why they would be flagged. And interestingly, the head of Instagram and Threads, Adam Mosseri, says, oh, they're looking into it. They found mistakes and made changes. And they interestingly blamed it on actions of human reviewers. Their tools were messed up in some way, and they were not seeing the context of posts. It all seems a little bit weird, because if you are a native English speaker and you look at these posts out of context, there's nothing that looks bad about them. So it's not really clear what's happening there. Almost certainly they're using some sort of automated systems to flag comments as well. So this is developing. And I think just in general, there is a problem most platforms have trying to moderate at scale. So you want people to follow the policies. You don't want it to be a terrible place. People saying racist or harassment or all these things, but it's extremely difficult to moderate these things, especially when the context does matter sometimes. And if you're just searching for certain words, which they seem to be doing in Crackergate, you're going to flag a lot of content that actually is not problematic because people talk various ways. Now, an interesting suggestion that I read, and I have no idea if this is true, is that there's speculation that Threads Instagram is using these reviews by human moderators to basically train the automated systems. So if the moderators are seeing posts without context and they say, yes, this is bad, that feeds back into the system, and that's causing these false positives. I don't know. They're not sharing that much information. Andrew says, this is a very derogatory term as used in the South. Yeah, so again, context matters, but also people eat crackers and it's fine. So people are having things flagged that shouldn't be flagged. And it's tricky. Language is tricky. There are words with multiple meanings. That's why the context matters. So hopefully they get this under control. Jolyn says she still can't access Threads. They got to get their act together. There isn't a lot of support for Meta products, unfortunately, and I've heard a lot of complaints from people. Same kind of thing. So the next thing I want to talk about, oh, Andrew says, call them saltines. You could, but there's multiple kinds of crackers. Maybe you just need to be specific. It could be a wheat thin. It could be a Ritz. It could be a saltine. Use specific terms until those actually turn into some kind of slur also. So just a couple more updates. The next update I am totally excited about, which shows you what an absolute nerd I am. But Google Docs has a brand new feature where you can add tabs. So it's kind of hard to see in this screenshot. I can maximize this. You can see on the left column, there are titles with a little icon emoji next to it. Basically, what this lets you do is break up your Google Doc into sections. And this is not the same as creating headlines or an outline. That's still an option. Instead, these are separate sections so that if you're on a particular tab, you're not scrolling through the entire document. It's just that section of the document. And you can name the tabs whatever you want. You can add an emoji icon to make them easy to see. And then if you're using headings inside your document, those show up underneath the tab name. So you can still navigate within that section using the headings. This is so fantastic. I have got some really, really long Google Docs, and it was a pain to kind of jump back and forth. This has made it so much easier to go to different sections. You guys are probably not as nerdy about this as I am, but this really scratches all my organization itches, and it makes things so easy. So as soon as I got this on my account, I implemented some tabs in my longer posts. It's great. If you use Google Docs for large documents, definitely give this a try. It will be on the left menu. And again, you can name the sections, whatever the tab sections, whatever you want. You can also link directly to a specific tab. So this is great for collaboration, organizing huge documents, working on documents. If you want to work on multiple sections of a document at the same time, sort of, this is a great way to jump between them. Excellent stuff. Thank you, Google. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about today, just really briefly, is an update from Adobe. And Adobe has a new web app where you can set your own content credentials for photos and videos. This is Adobe's Content Authenticity web app. So you can label your images with metadata. That's your name, your website, your social media. You can also indicate if you allow your images or videos to be used for AI training, although I don't know if any company actually pays attention to that. And it supposedly has an invisible watermark. So even if someone takes a screenshot of your image, that data is still embedded in there. Now, this is in beta. It's not fully available yet, but what you can get is a Chrome extension that lets you see the content credentials on any image on a web page that you're on. So definitely check that out for your own images or to see information about other people's images. And will this become a standard? That's what Adobe is hoping for. So we'll see how that goes. And then the last thing, really, really super quickly is if you use Google Meet on your Android device, either for calling or for meetings, there is a new Meet Android beta program. You can join that. You get the latest updates. Google wants you to send in feedback. They are transitioning from legacy Meet calling, which is duo calling, to new Meet calling. So there'll be some changes and updates. So those are this week's updates. Thank you so much. Whoops. Thanks you so much for joining me. Uh, Love to see you guys in the chat. Yes, definitely use the Google Docs tool. At least give it a try. Maybe it's not your thing. Now, I am going to be in another live stream immediately after this one over on the On eBoard channel. We're going to be chatting about blogging. I'd love if you join us. There's an automatic redirect when I end here. That live stream probably won't start until about 5 minutes after the hour, even though it's scheduled for the top of the hour. So check that out. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, thanks to Braylon for sharing a question that I could talk about and sharing the details from your YouTube account.